Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, chapter 840 of One Piece has dropped. It dropped a day early, and I wasn't expecting that, so I'm a little bit behind. But, even if it dropped early, there's nothing that we can do other than read it and get hyped. And this chapter was awesome. We still didn't get anything outside of the whole Sanji backstory, but I'm totally fine with it because we're actually going places. So without further ado, I'm going to spoil chapter 840, so check it out, and once you have, check out my review. Let's go. First things first, it's completely confirmed that Germa's soldiers are all cloned, and they're cloned from some of the strongest warriors out there, just a few warriors that have been cloned many times, and that's what comprises Germa's 66 army. Now, Sanji got a good look at all of these clones, and specifically the ones that people thought looked like Virgo, and he doesn't seem to recognize them as being Virgo, keeping in mind that in the Punk Hazard arc, Sanji actually faced off against Virgo. So I think it's very clear that these are not clones of Virgo. I know that was a thought after last chapter. I didn't believe it because although there were some similarities, there were differences as well. And then if they were clones, then that wouldn't make much sense. So it's pretty clear they're not clones of Virgo, but they are clones in general. And so it's still not spelled out for us. It's still not spelled out whether or not Sanji and his siblings are also some kind of clone. But it is confirmed that they are in fact genetically engineered, super augmented humans. Basically, Judge Vinsmoke is one of the top scientists in the world. In the past, he specifically worked with Vegapunk, and there's some really awesome information dropped on Vegapunk as well, which I'll get into in a second. But so he is one of the top scientists in the world, and he figured out how to manipulate genes in order to create the 4 quadruplets, as well as Reiju as well. I believe Reiju is part of this, but she may not have the same kind of advancement as the other siblings. It's really hard to tell. Specifically, at the end of the chapter, they talk about how all of the children of the Vinsmoke have developed their exoskeletons. But except for Sanji. And so an exoskeleton basically makes them that's like a quality of an insect, which is why insects, despite their size, are really hard on the outside, because they have exoskeletons. And so this totally explains why all of Sanji's siblings are so hard, and why specifically Yanji, after Sanji beat his face in, used a press to remold his face. Basically, he isn't a cyborg. I know I said that in the past, but there is something to him which made him harder, and this turned out to be an exoskeleton. But I still do believe that they are in fact clones. In this chapter specifically, Judge referred to them as his greatest creations. But also in the same chapter, it's revealed that they have some sort of mother that died a long time ago. So it's very unclear, but we still do know that at the very least they're twins, which would technically make them some form of clone in the first place, but just like not a form of experiment clone, but rather just life itself producing its own kind of clone, which is really what a twin is. So Yanji and Sanji look exactly the same, but I do think that there was something that Judge did in order to create at the same time 4 children, all of which he deemed as his greatest experiment. Going into Sanji's mother for a second, it's clear that she died a long time ago, so there are several popular theories that were out there that suggested that, it was something involving Sanji's mother, which ultimately led to Sanji's hate of the Vinsmoke family. But this really does not seem likely at this point in time, given that Sanji still had hope for his family at the point in time in which his mother was already dead, and it wasn't until the Vinsmokes basically gave up on him and gave up on his abilities, and then took away the things that he loved, that he came to hate his family. And so this had nothing specifically to do with his mother, which really kind of paints his mother as an irrelevant figure at this point in time. Although it is still possible that his mother, gave something to Sanji in his youth, which made him slightly different from all of his siblings in terms of the fact that he seems incredibly nice compared to his brothers, and then, likes cooking, etc. And there's also the possibility that Sanji's mother is completely made up by Judge Vinsmoke himself. He said that his mother is long dead, So, clearly at this point in time, I think Sanji was like, 6, 7, or 8, something along that lines. And so it's clear that he doesn't have too much interaction with his mother. We also get specific information that suggests that the Germa 66 soldiers, the clone army, they don't know that they are clones. This is kept secret from them. So it's possible this is also being kept secret from the children as well. And specifically at this moment, Sanji. And so then Judge may have made up the existence of a mother to sort of hide the fact that they were all in fact clones. This is definitely a possibility. And then going into Reiju for a second, I had this feeling about Reiju. There's a lot of people that were really skeptical and probably still are skeptical on whether or not she's sincere. But given the context clues of this chapter and then all the previous chapters, I'm starting to build some huge Reiju love right now, because she really seems like a genuine and nice girl, someone who is going to help Sanji escape the situation in the future of Whole Cake Island. At the very least, she definitely seems like the oddball out of all the children of the Vinsmokes, in the sense that it's constantly being hinted at that she really does care about Sanji. She actually likes Sanji. So let's get into the whole Vegapunk thing now, and this is crazy to me. Like, honestly, this is the aspect of the chapter that just blew my mind more than anything else. The Sanji stuff got the feels up, and it's definitely building towards some sort of conflict between Sanji and the Vinsmoke. But the Vegapunk things has my mind shattered, honestly. Vegapunk and Judge discovered the blueprints to life, and specifically, it's implied together, or maybe it was just Vegapunk, discovered the hitherto unexplained lineage factor, which was actually brought up by Trafalgar Law all the way at the end of the Punk Hazard arc at the beginning of the Dressrosa arc. And so I want to break something down for y'all for a second, which is that the lineage factors were used as a practical application by Caesar, Clown, in order to produce the artificial devil fruit, specifically the chemical known as SAD or SAD. And so this same lineage factor is also hinted to be what is helped create the clone army by Vegapunk. This is the secret of life. And so the secret of life not only helps produce clones, but also helps produce devil fruit, or at least artificial devil fruit. We also know, based off of Big Mom's ability, that Big Mom takes someone's soul. That's why her fruit is called the soul fruit. But when she takes someone's soul, the soul contains that person's life force. So that's life itself. This highly supports some of the things that I've been talking about recently, with the whole idea that the devil fruits possess some kind of soul or some kind of life force. Which is that the same thing, the lineage factors or the blueprints to life are used to create devil fruit, just as they will be used to produce clones. Therefore, devil fruits have some kind of life inside of them. And then so to top this off with the whole Vegapunk thing, he and Judge and some other scientists were doing experiments related to the blueprints of life, and then the world government caught wind of it and decided to arrest Vegapunk. Judge managed to escape. And so they deemed it a power too great for mankind. And then Vegapunk, in part of the world government, continued on his research clearly as he was doing experiments with devil fruits, etc. And then also, taught what he knew to Caesar Clown. All of this, the world government now supports because it's like under their control. So fuck the world government, man. Fuck them. Like, for real, like, hypocritical bastards. That's what they are. And so my real question at this point in time is, how does Germa 66, its existence, when did it come into existence? At what point in time? And then when did they have control over the North Blue? Because we're led to believe that in the past, Judge and Vegapunk were scientists together. And then, Brook seems to have some sort of history with dealing with Germa 66. Specifically, he seems to have a lot of specific knowledge about what they're capable of, which kind of suggests that, at the very least, he had some run-in with them, which was a very long time ago, if that was the case. So, this whole sequence of events with, Germa 66 once ruling the North Blue, the creation of the legendary army Germa 66, as well as, when Judge was working as a scientist with Vegapunk on the lineage factors. I don't understand how this all ties together at this point in time. But one thing this all does do is this highly supports the notion that Vegapunk is working with the revolutionaries, because as we know, Vegapunk was at one point in time arrested by the world government. And then he was doing experiments on his own, but then the world government sort of took over and was like, well, the only way you're doing these experiments is if you do them for the world government and not anyone else, which would definitely breed the kind of situation which would create a revolutionary such as Vegapunk. I could definitely see Vegapunk having no love for the world government whatsoever. And so the last thing that I want to talk about in regards to this chapter is it does not look so good for Sanji versus Niji, and specifically Ichiji, who I get a bigger impression is actually like the strongest Vince Milk child. Niji, he cracked his ribs with his electric blue knee to the back, pretty much took out Sanji in one hit. And so this might end up becoming a situation similar to Trafalgar Law and Doflamingo. I still believe to this day that Oda should have written in Law as the man who defeated Doflamingo. Given the history between the two characters, I think that it was necessary for Law to actually be the person to defeat Doflamingo just for the feels. But unfortunately, Oda basically created a situation where Law wasn't strong enough, and Luffy, being the main character, had to take care of his problem for him, which is kind of a recurring theme throughout the story, like such as Nami, all the way back in the Arlong Park arc. She was the one who had the history with Arlong, but she just wasn't strong enough to take on Arlong, therefore Luffy had to do it for her. So perhaps Sanji isn't strong enough to take on his genetically augmented brothers, given that he is just a quote-unquote normal human, and therefore Luffy will have to do it for her. I don't want to believe that, but I definitely think it's something that we should be thinking as a possibility. But yeah, guys, wow, this was a really, really good chapter. I'm actually hoping that we get more of this the next chapter. Specifically, how did Sanji escape? Clearly, at the end of this chapter, it didn't look so good for little Sanji because he was trapped, and they basically wanted to erase him from history. And clearly, they didn't know where he left to after he left Germa 66, because they spent several years after this looking for him. And so, you know, did they let him go? It doesn't seem likely. It seems more likely that he escaped in some way, and if he did escape, then that would mean that somebody helped him, because he's not strong enough on his own. So right now, my only guess as to how Sanji could have escaped would have been through Reiju. But that isn't revealed information yet. That's just a speculation, so I hope that we actually get an official answer next chapter. Regardless, love the chapter. I want to hear what you guys think, see if you noticed anything that I didn't notice, or want to say something. Like the video if you liked the video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed, and as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.